It's time for our next presentation. The next speaker is Mr. Saboor Mobariz. He will present a cybersecurity related topic. Moderator of the session will be Mr. Tikola Ahmadzai, my colleague in the AFNOG organizing team. I welcome both of them. I'll pass the mic to Mr. Tikola Ahmadzai.
Okay. Mohit, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to do the presentation.
You're welcome.
I'll thank you. Welcome. Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I'm Atikullah Ahmadzai and will be moderating AFNOG3 event second last topic, which is identity and access management. I will be moderating this session for next 30 minutes. I hope we will enjoy and learn something new from our guest speaker. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our sponsors, ICANN, AFNIC Foundation, AFNOG, AFNIC, and RIPE NCC for their generous support, which helped us for making our event possible. Your supports mean the world to us. Thank you so much. Now I would like to begin by introducing our guest speaker for this topic. Our speaker will be Saboor Mobariz, as Uthman Khisab mentioned, Senior Program Manager, who will be presenting identity and access management. So I'm kindly requesting Uthman Khisab to unmute the microphone of Mobariz Sahib, that he can start the session by introducing himself to our audience and share with us some insights and best practices on identity and access management. The floor is yours, Mobariz Sahib. Over to you.
Thank you, Ahmadzai Sahib. I hope you all can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you. We have yours.
Okay, great. So thank you, Ahmadzai Sahib, and good afternoon, good morning, good day, based off where you're joining this session. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for joining this session. I'm certainly not an expert in identity and access management, but I have been working in this domain for quite a while. I've been working in the IT industry for over a decade across different verticals. So for today's session, since this is our first session on the identity and access management, I have put together a couple of slides which I'll go through this session. However, before I share my screen, I wanted to mention that the views and thoughts expressed in this meeting are solely mine, and they're certainly not related or necessarily related to my current or previous employers. So let me share my screen, and please let me know if you're able to see. Okay. Are you able to see my screen okay?
No, not yet. We can only see your user.
Okay, let me then. Okay, go.
Yes, now we have your screen.
Okay, great. Let me put this on the presentation mode. All right. So identity and access management, securing your digital world. Like I mentioned, I've put together a couple of slides but since this is our first meeting or first session, I will keep this at a high level, but hopefully in the upcoming or the next sessions, we can dive deeper into some of the technical stuff and explore more, like, each topic in more details. So the key question, like, what is identity and access management, and what problems that this solves? So at a very high level, I would say it's an IAM as a framework of policies, processes, and technologies that help organizations to manage their users, to ensure right individuals have the right access to the right resources. So why this is important is because of security requirements, compliance, and productivity. As we all know that each organization have its own users, and when we talk about users, it could be their internal users, it could be their external users, and all these users require access to certain resources, like, the systems and applications. So having the right identity and access management in place is to ensure preventing any unauthorized access to this critical resources, whether it's data or it's applications or systems. And also in most cases, organizations, infrastructures and application needs to be in compliance with the regulatory and requirements, such as, like, GDPR, and whether it's HIPAA, like, etc. And also having a proper identity and access management in place helps increase productivity and efficiency, like, providing a seamless user experience while also maintaining control, and also having efficiency, like, automating the user provisioning and deprovisioning. In short, I would say, when we talk about identity and access management, so there are 4 A's, or I would say, if we categorize, like, there are 4 major components here, or major activities here within an IAM solution. One is the administration, like, how you would like to how do you like to create and maintain your user base. And then authentication. I will talk about this in more details in the upcoming slides. Like, who a person who is trying, or a system who is trying to access a certain resource, you want to make sure that's the right person or system trying to access. So administration, authentication, and then authorization, where, like, managing access rights. So you identified the user. Now it's time to also make sure you have the right implementation in place to provide the right access to that user. And then audit, definitely, like, for security audits and governance, you need you need to have an audit process in place. So basically, talking about all this, it's important to understand and also it helps us understand, like, why IAM is important, and why organization needs to have an identity and access management policies, processes, and in place. So moving on, the first and major component within an IAM solution or IAM implementation is authentication. It's the who. So now, when we talk about we talked about users. Who are the users? I think in most cases, when we say users, we automatically think about the human users, like, it's a person who is trying to access certain applications, and they need to be authenticated to ensure or to confirm who they are claiming to be, or who they are. But we in this era, or in this like era of, like, advanced technologies, and so we also need to understand the non-human users as well. So it's not, when we say users, identity of users, it's not only humans, but it's also systems. It's also, when we talk about AI nowadays, it's AI agents. So we want to manage the and also confirm identities of AI agents as well. So basically, when we talk about core concepts of the identity and access management, the two things come, or two things stand out. One is the authentication, the who, and then the authorization. So if we dig a little bit deeper into the authentication process, is the process of verifying a user's identity. By that, as I mentioned earlier, user identity is confirming who we confirming a user who claims to be. For example, if I want to log into an application, I will be challenged to respond to add my username and password and additional authentication requirements, such as multi-factor authentication, or, like, if it's a system that requires fingerprints or Face ID or security tokens. So basically, implementing all these, or having all these processes in places to confirm identity of a user. At this point, we are not talking about what level of access that user has. We are just talking about the who, like, if a user is trying to access an application, the first step is to identify if that user is the legitimate user trying to access that particular system, or if it's a machine-to-machine authentication process. We want to make sure, like, that's the right machine or the right system trying to access the resource that's trying to. So basically, sometimes we get confused with between authentication and authorization, but here we just wanted to make sure, like, we all understand, like, the authentication and authorization are two different processes. So with authentication, we are trying to just make sure this is the person who is claiming to be. So I'll talk a little bit more about this in the upcoming slides, and in terms of the implementations of, like, passwords or password list, or, like, having the multi-factor authentication. What are the different kinds of factors that most organizations consider, and also additional considerations while implementing authentication. And then in terms of authorization is the what. So by that, I mean, okay, so you identify the user who seems to be legitimate, who's trying to access an application. Now it's the next step, or this is the time to make sure it has the right access. Like, for example, if a user is just an employee of an organization and has an read access to an application, now after being authenticated, the application will authorize, like, say, yes, you are who you are, but you have only read access, so here's what you can access. And similarly, like, if there's a user who has, like, a different access, so that access will be provided. So basically, when we talk about authorization, there are two major implementation that comes to mind is the role-based access control. This is the industry standard, and attribute access control. So basically, with these two, you determine how you would like to authorize users or grant access to the users who are being authenticated. So basically, as I mentioned, these two, the authentication and authorization, are the two key components or the two key concepts when we talk about the identity and access management system. Now, we talked about users, we talked about authentication and authorization. When it comes to the implementation of identity and access management, in most cases, organizations, they want to have a distinction between their customer identity and access management and then their workforce identity and access management. Now, what do I mean by that? So in most organizations, there are customer-facing applications where those applications will be accessed by their customers, their clients, by their partners, people who are outside the organization, but they need access to resources or applications or systems. And then on the other hand is the workforce identity. So it's the employees of the or that particular organization, or the contractors of that particular organization, who are trying to access, or they have or they need access to certain applications, data, or the different systems that they need to access. So as I mentioned, when it comes to the identity and access management, some organizations, they want to keep these two as separate. So they call it CIM, and then workforce identity and access management, or customer identity and access management and workforce identity management. As you can see on the slide, so basically the goal of the customer identity and access management is providing a seamless and secure user experience, single sign-on, easy sign-up, or social login, managing customer data privacy. So there's a major difference, how you want to set your customer identity and access management versus the workforce identity, because there are two different use cases and there are two different requirements for these. There are two different sets of requirements. When we talk about customer identity, we mostly take into consideration the customer data and privacy. But when it's most on the workforce identity and access management, it's about the internal organization system and data, and how the life cycle management, provisioning and deprovisioning, and also the internal policies and compliance requirements. So in short, I would say when we talk about the overall identity and access management, there are two ways. Some organizations, they keep them all under one umbrella, or as one implementation, having an identity and access management both for their customers and their workforce. But in some organizations, they want to keep them as separate. So the 4 A's that I talked earlier in the previous slides, the administration, authentication, authorization, and then the next one is the audit, or the identity governance and administration. So basically here the idea is like, having an identity governance in place. So basically the overarching framework that provides visibility, control, and automation over use of identities and access rights. In each organizations, I think having a governance or like identity governance in place helps ensuring like the implementation is correct, and also making sure, as we talked about, like the compliance requirements. So basically this is how you make sure the implementation is in compliance with the regulatory requirements, and also you have an oversight on the overall process, and you have visibility of like how the provisioning and deprovisioning of the user accounts and access are managed, and then access reviews to certification, regularly reviewing who has access to what and why. So basically that comes under the like identity governance. And then the compliance reporting as well, like in certain cases organizations are required to generate reports for auditors to demonstrate like they adhere to the policies, and also separation of duties, like preventing a single user from having conflicting access rights. Now, we talked about the overall identity and access management, the core concepts, and the implementation, like how most organizations adopt identity and access management. I think it's worth spending some time to talk about the privileged access management. So sometimes we talk a lot about like how we secure our infrastructure, how we secure our environment, how we secure our applications, and we talk about like having only the right access to the right end users. So we have been so far talking about the end users, but I think the key to the kingdom is with the privileged users. When we talk about privileged users, is our administrators who have access to the entire like database, or like as an admin to an application, where that admin user can access, make changes and updates. And so these are like privileged users that needs to be managed properly. Otherwise, like that's the weak link there. Like you have everything secured, but then you have the privileged users, like the admins, who are like if you don't have a proper implementation or a proper PAM, which like the short form of like privileged access management in place, then you have it means like there's an opportunity for misuse, or there is a weak link, I would say. So when we talk about the privileged access management, it's again a specialized subset of IAM focused on securing, managing, and monitoring privileged accounts. And these are like the elevated permissions, such as like the IT administrators, database administrators. So why it's important? It's because the privileged accounts are most common targets for attackers, because if they can get access to the an admin user account, then that's like the best, like for them, right? So there's when we implement identity and access management, I think a key or a special focus should be on how we manage the privileged accounts. Like in some cases there are like I've seen myself in some organizations where for the system privileged accounts, like, there was it was many years ago, there was a super admin account that we had for one of the applications, and that super admin account was shared between, like, two individuals. Like, both of those individuals had the same access with, like, the same account. So it's really hard if something goes wrong. It's really hard, like, to find out who actually did that, something that led to a disaster or something. So what I mean by that is, like, if there's no proper implementation of, like, privileged access, where you could see all the audit trails, all the logs, like, who made the change, at what time, like, with what access, then in that case there's an issue with the implementation. So I think we have
Thank you, sir. I think we are
left.
short of time.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just, I think, wrap up. I think I have two more
Okay.
slides to go.
Okay, no problem.
Very quickly, I would like to touch upon the user journey. So when we talk about identity and access management, so basically there is a life cycle for the user that we talk about here. So we need to have a process for the joiners. So each organizations will have new people joining their organization, and then there are movers or transfers. Like, this happens all the time. Like, there are some employees get promotions, or they're transferred to different department. Then so we need to have that process of, like, how we manage those. And then leavers or offboarding. So we have the onboarding and then the offboarding process. Like, when users leave the organization, how we want to make sure we limit their revoke their access, so that they are not able to access to the critical organization's assets when they are terminated or they leave. So I think this is a very important slide. I wanted to spend a little bit time, since we have only 2 minutes left. I would talk about it at a very high level. Hopefully in the next sessions we can dive deeper into the implementation of these. So building the IAM stack, like, when we talk about the implementation of the identity and access management, the first thing that comes to mind is the single sign-on implementation. So what is a single sign-on? When you have, like, tens or hundreds of applications and you want your users to be able to access them, it's not a good idea to, or it's not even, like, in this era, it doesn't work. Like, if you have 100 applications and you want your users to, anytime they access any of those applications, they need to just enter their username and password and try to log into each application with their, like, credentials each time. But rather, a single sign-on solution helps, like, users a seamless user experience where you authenticate them once, and then they're able to access all the other applications when they without, like, being asked or challenged to enter their password again. So that's the single sign-on solution, and how we want to do it. Like, definitely, like, there are standard protocols, like, using SAML, OpenID Connect, and then, like, and then for the authorization, definitely, like, again, other frameworks and protocols, like, OAuth 2.0. And then multi-factor authentication. Again, this is one of the, like, best practices nowadays. Like, organization that do not want to rely on only a single username and password for the authentication. They would like to add additional layers of security beyond username and password, and that's, like, adding the tokens, or, like, for example, you have biometrics or facial IDs or for multi-factor, and which factors are like the best. It depends on each organization's needs, and definitely for when we talk about the IAM stack, we need the directory service. Where do we want to keep the user information? So basically, a user directory. And then identity provisioning, tools that help automate creation and deactivation of user identities, API gateways to securely manage access APIs. And then I would really quick talk about benefits of the IAM program. Definitely it improves security, enhance compliance, increase efficiency, better user experience, and also minimizing risks. And then I would like to conclude my presentation today here with just one statement, that when we talk about identity and access management implementation and practice within organization, it's not just an IT function, and it's a fundamental business strategy and security for security and efficiency. What is the overall organization's strategy towards identity and access management? And it's not only an IT to be the champions for having a proper IAM in place. So in today's interconnected world, strong IAM program is not a luxury, it's a necessity. So each organization should have a strategy for building a robust customer identity and workforce identity. With that being said, I would like to stop here, and I know we are right at time, but if there's any questions, any question that I can answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mobariz, for sharing your expertise with us in our AFNOG3 event. It's always a pleasure to have you. We have just one question I just received now from one of our persons.
Ahmad Zai, thank you so much. Mobariz, thank you so much. Sorry, because we are already 2 minutes behind, and the next session presenter is also joined us. So if possible, Mobariz will answer the question in the comment section.
Sure.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Mobariz and Ahmad Zai, for the nice session.